Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today it's a big one. The new collab album between Future and Metro Boomin, We Don't Trust You. Do you think Future and Metro knew just how much one guest verse would monopolize mainstream rap conversations the past couple of days, where the immediate non-response from those targeted feels like a story in and of itself? I mean, I was gonna hear this regardless. Metro Boomin and Future can work well together, and you can argue the pairing are responsible for some of Future's best work in the mid-2010s, but Future albums as of recently have their own frustrating baggage and limited content, and usually running way too long to sustain that nihilistic wallow. And that places this project in a bit of an odd place, because while social media spent the weekend making increasingly stupid arguments about rap beef, and Kendrick Lamar taking on both Drake and J. Cole at once, We Don't Trust You becomes a bit of an interesting case study, as both Future and Metro Boomin also clearly have issues with Drake as well, and this album is at its most compelling when engaging that attack, both directly and through subs, or at least presenting the implication that a bridge has been thoroughly burned and battle lines are being drawn up. Now, to put it another way, it feels very intentional that The Weeknd just shows up for some backing vocals on Young Metro, one of the album's highlights, and a big surprise that Rick Ross actually delivered on Everyday Hustle. Did not know there was potentially friction between him and Drake, whereas for Playboi Carti, and especially Travis Scott, seems a little more like click hopping. And hell, when Future is locked into that darker, more embittered lane, this album can actually summon some of that pseudo-gothic menace that epitomized his peak era and intensity of the mid-2010s, down to even some of the synth choices and, competently mastered trap percussion, albeit if you do compare to Monster or Dirty Sprite 2, as Future's flow feels more controlled and downbeat amidst mixes that aren't quite as immense, you might think the bombast has been kind of turned down, that these beats are just less impressive. Now, I'm on the fence about this. I have come to appreciate Future a fair bit more when he goes that hard, especially given that he's improved considerably as a technical lyricist in the past decade, and also keep in mind, I don't exactly love that golden era of Future, and I think that it's aged more than you might remember. But if you fall out with a friend with whom you've made a lot of charting music and you're now in your 40s and you're stewing in bitterness, it kind of makes sense that your anger might take on a different tone. But that's the catch. Those moments stand in stark contrast to many other songs where Future is playing very by the numbers with less energy, in some cases with older snippets that go as far back as 2017, like on WTFYM. And not only does that add unnecessary bloat with subject matter we've heard before, it's a reminder that in terms of content, Future can still be very limited amidst the flexing and the brand name porn and stealing your girl. And he's arguably not even as flagrant as he normally is. You can tell he was taking this a bit more seriously, and that might have muted some of the wilder swings. Now, you can also argue the album is as much of a showcase for Metro Boomin, with the instrumental breaks and the frequent samples of the late prodigy trashing rappers that he thought weren't hard enough. Kind of ironic in retrospect. And while I'm grateful for competent mixing and mastering in mainstream trap, it's nice to hear from Metro, I'd also struggle to say that all these have Metro and his co-producers at their best, especially when this album starts seriously dragging in its final third, which doesn't exactly bode well for that planned second album this year to drop mid-April. You can also tell, for as much as this record calls back to the mid-2010s and the funereal bombast to elevate cuts like the title track, Young Metro, Claustrophobic, GTA, or that Mobb Deep flip on Seen It All, and not for nothing, I kind of really like the elegant debauchery of Cinderella running into the organ-driven Running Outta Time that's gonna be a hit, especially with that guitar outro, Zaytoven's flutes all over Ain't No Love, and the soul flip of Everyday Hustle, where again Ross just goes off. There are certain choices that could have been left behind in the 2010s, like that god-awful synth horn on Like That, or all those gauzy tones on Where My Twin At. This album really needed a stronger conclusion, but overall, if anything, it kind of feels a bit compromised. If we got the Future album that was allowed to be as confrontational and nasty as its most promising moments, with the chaff cut for a more streamlined album, I'd be tempted to call this his best in some time. As it is with that second album reportedly coming, it doesn't look like there was the quality control in the room to trim this down to the absolute best. But you know what, this being Future, I'm also not exactly surprised by that. That being said, as someone who has been reviewing Future for shit, over a decade now, and man, some of those reviews are not pretty in retrospect. I'm kinda shocked that not only do I think this is good, but trimmed down with more cutting focus, this could have been great. And look, I'm probably giving a little bit too much credit to some of those instigating moments. I think the fallout from this album will determine if it's got proper legs into the summer, and given that Metro Boomin is tied to Republic, which rolls up under UMG, TikTok traction is not in the cards here. But I also can't deny that the strongest moments, the best songs, they really click for me. There's greatness here, so I guess we'll see where it goes from here. If you're curious and you're expecting Future, well, it's a lot of what you would expect, but it is interesting. It's worth a shot. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more, please be sure to like, share, drop comments, and subscribe. I know that I've had a long and messy history with Future, especially in my reviews, especially early on, so I'm curious where the diehard Future fans are falling on this. I like it, but again, I kind of have a skewed metric when it comes to Future. We'll have to see. Beyond that, though, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if you all want to get involved in maybe supporting the channel, adding albums to my schedule, or just arguing with me more directly on my Discord, link to my Patreon right over there. Don't feel obligated, tough times, I understand, but the option's available. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.